All right. Good morning. Thank you for coming to join us today. I appreciate you coming, Marcia and Carol and Rochelle. And we may have one other visitor who will drop in on us in a little while, but like I said, Amanda said she was coming and maybe something happened. She couldn't. This morning we're going to be spending some time, as you know, talking about servant leadership. This is part 2 of my presentation, and the first part, for those of you who may not have had the opportunity, can go visit it on our website. I know that there's enough content there that sometimes going back and reflecting on it later is a good thing. Whether you've done part 1 or not, you are, I think, will be successful at getting what I want to give you today from this presentation. Today's presentation is going to be more about the how-to of being a servant leader. So I want to begin by giving you my goals, and that is to inform all of you about the principles of servant leadership as I understand them, in a simple and straightforward manner. I also would like to outline a simple process that you can use to implement these principles of servant leadership in your life and in the organization, TLC, that you work for. I want to give a disclaimer, like I did the last time, that the principles of servant leadership and the core ideas for this presentation are not my own. Although I believe that I have actually striven to practice them in my many years of being a chairman of boards, a nursing supervisor, a director of nurses, and even an executive director of a nonprofit organization that I founded several years ago. In this presentation, I am depending on for the content on an author named James Hunter. He works for his own company called J.D. Hunter Associates, and they are a leadership firm, and they train specifically in leadership development. Mr. Hunter's first book, The Servant, A Simple Story About the Essence of Leadership, actually enriched my own leadership journey when I read it in 2009. Again, recently, when I was preparing for this presentation, I discovered his second book, The World's Most Powerful Leadership Principle, How to Become a Servant Leader. Thanks to Mr. Hunter, I am able to offer this incomplete consideration of the principles of servant leadership, all the while hoping that your interest in the topic gets stimulated and that your willingness to use the principles is forthcoming. In the end, it's you. It's you who will decide the importance and the usefulness of leading as a servant in your own life. I recommend without any hesitation that you pick up Mr. Hunter's books and read them both. You will not be disappointed for the effort. In part 1 of my presentation, I summarized what a servant leader should look like, and I attempted to stimulate your appetite for more education about being a servant leader. Today, that is our focus. How do we implement being a servant leader? The world is a very diverse place. It has many different cultures. It has different morals, different values that are in those cultures, and they define what is considered right and wrong. Obviously, moral behavior in one society can be viewed as immoral in another. Morality even changes over time within a culture. According to Mr. Hunter, the world's most powerful leadership principle, How to Become a Servant Leader, says, ethics, then, can be defined as performing or behaving according to the accepted standards of conduct, and becomes a system for applying morals, values, and duties. End of quote. In summary, values, morals, and ethics vary greatly among culture and over time. Principles, on the other hand, are self-evident. But why are they self-evident? Before I answer the question, I want to give you a dictionary definition of what the word principles means. Principles are comprehensive, fundamental laws. Unlike values and morals and ethics, which vary greatly between cultures and change over time, principles are unchanging. To use the observation of Cecil B. DeMille, the director of the classic movie The Ten Commandments, regarding the principles contained in those great commandments, he says, "It is impossible for us to break the law. We can only break ourselves against the law." Consider a society in which the opposites of the principles of the Ten Commandments were valued. Imagine a society that valued impatience, incivility, arrogance, selfishness, disrespect, unforgiveness, dishonesty, and little or no discipline. Would this society be worth living in? Probably not. If one studies the various religions of the world, one inevitably finds basic principles such as integrity, respect for human life, self-control, honesty, courage, commitment, and self-sacrifice. Put another way by Mr. Hunter, he says, "We may disagree from culture to culture about how many wives a man should have, but most everyone's going to agree that he should not have another man's wife." Indeed, the great religions of the world all support this notion of universal human principles. I ask you now, how do we want to be treated by a leader? How do we want to be treated by a leader? Do we want a leader who is kind, humble, respectful, selfless, forgiving, honest, patient, and committed?
Oh, yeah.
They're all saying yes. Of course we do. And according to James Hunter, therein lies the great wisdom of the golden rule as it applies to leadership. Be the leader you want your leader to be. So here we are at another disconnect. If we can all agree on generally acceptable principles of human conduct, why do we so often choose to behave contrary to the standard? To understand the answer to the question, we need to explore human nature and our moral sense and our character. When asked during his seminars, Dr. Peck, "What is human nature?" Dr. M. Scott Peck, who's a best-selling author and a psychiatrist, responded vehemently, "Human nature is going to the bathroom in your pants. Next question, please." Again, James Hunter helps us to understand Dr. Peck's point. Mr. Hunter says, "The glory of being a human being, and what separates us from the animal kingdom, is that we can teach and discipline ourselves to do what is not natural until it becomes second nature." What is natural about brushing your teeth in the morning? You ever observed any animals doing that? What is natural about reading and writing, displaying good manners, or extending yourself for others? Indeed, anytime we discipline ourselves to do anything, we are doing what is not natural until it becomes our second nature. Unlike animals, human beings are not tightly bound by instinct. Hunter concurs, and he adds this: "Even the few instincts that some could argue human beings possess, like survival or procreation, can be transcended, as evidenced by martyrs and celibates. Human beings are endowed with unique capacities like imagination, free will, conscience, and a self-awareness. Human beings have the unique ability to ponder their condition and even make changes to what comes naturally. Indeed, human beings have the unique ability to choose to be different from their nature." Think of the awesome responsibility of having this freedom to choose. When it comes to the kind of person one is, that person alone is responsible for determining what he or she will become. I repeat that. When it comes to the kind of person one is, that person alone is responsible to determine what he or she will become and what he or she will make out of his or her life. The potential for good and evil is inherent in all of us. Humans can choose to be good or bad. However, our moral sense of right and wrong competes with other senses and desires and temptations that are just as natural to us as these other characters. Our urgings may include getting lots of possessions, accumulating power, indulging in sex without commitment, desiring pleasure, amassing wealth. There's many other similar natural desires that we have. How the drama plays out between our moral sense and the ways we choose to behave is how our character is formed, ladies. In the world's most powerful leadership principle, How to Become a Servant Leader, Hunter summarizes this way. He says, there appear to be at least two truths about human nature. One, human beings have a unique capacity to make moral choices about the stimuli that the world throws at them. We have the ability to choose our responses. Human beings can choose to be different, to behave contrary to, and to rise above their natural instincts, appetites, and urgings. Human beings can choose to do what is not natural until it becomes second nature. The second idea is that human beings have the capacity for good and evil. However, the tendency toward bad behavior is more the natural state, and it must be resisted. The will to do the right thing is where intentions and actions meet. I say that again. The will to do the right thing is where intentions and actions meet. And this will to do the right thing must be carefully developed and nourished, lest we too become like one of those nasty beings that roam our planet. Mr. Hunter continues and says, the good news is that there is a set of psychological traits, a moral muscle, if you will, that gives human beings the will and the courage and the strength to do the right thing. This moral muscle, if developed and strengthened over time, enables human beings to put principle ahead of self and to rise above self-interest and immediate gratification. We have a name for this moral muscle, ladies. What do you think its name is?
Conscience.
Say again?
Conscience?
Conscience is one possibility. Simple. It's our character. The moral muscle equals our character. Dwight Moody, the 19th century lay evangelist, once remarked, character is what a man is in the dark. The word character derives from a Greek verb which means to engrave. Thus, a person's character is the visible sign of his inner nature. The person's character is the visible sign of his inner nature. Character is what we are beneath our personality. I concur with Mr. Hunter and the other trainers with whom I have spent time spent time with them, that healthy human beings should continue to grow and develop character throughout their lives. This is what we mean by maturity. Maturity equals growing forward in our character. Mr. Hunter points out again, character is of higher importance than personality, as evidenced by the fact that society does not usually hold people accountable for their personality traits, but certainly it holds them accountable for their behaviors, and therefore their character. Character is our moral maturity, which is our willingness to do the right thing, even when it costs us something to do it. I repeat that. Character is our moral maturity, which is our willingness to to do the right thing even when it costs something. Indeed, our true character is revealed when the price of doing the right thing is more than we are willing to pay. Character is our moral and ethical strength to behave according to proper values and principles. And character is our level of commitment to do the right thing, which explains why leadership is character in action. There's a saying that you can judge people's character by how they treat people who can do nothing for them. Mm-hmm. You all agree with that, I see. Mm-hmm. Leadership or character is doing the right thing, especially when we do not feel like it. The traits, both good and bad, of which our character is made are influenced, but not determined by heredity and environment. Here we must consider that we all have predispositions and handicaps that can become obstacles to our character development. In the end, what we have become is to a great extent the result of our choices, both past and present. On the other hand, our present state need not be the dictator of our future state. We are to let our future character be determined by the choices we make today and tomorrow. It's never too late to choose being someone different. Hunter helps us further to understand what character consists of. He tells us in his second book this: character is knowledge of the good, doing the good, and loving the good, the habits of the mind, the habits of the will, and the habits of the heart. We become what we repeatedly do. We become just by doing just acts. Self-controlled by doing self-controlled acts, or brave by doing brave acts. The ancients put it this way: thoughts become actions, actions become habits, habits become our character, and our character becomes our destiny. Seen yet another way, it's not fate that determines character. Rather, it's the choices we make that determine our character. In America, we praise talent and we reward it handsomely. On the other hand, it seems more prudent to me to much more recognize and praise excellence of character than talent. Why, one might ask? Hunter gives a clear answer. He says, a well-developed character is a unique person, forged out of his or her own raw material, however flawed or damaged, choice by choice, day by day, year by year. A unique person molded through hard work, courage, commitment, and making the right choices even when those choices were difficult or unpopular. Author C.S. Lewis reminds us that is why little decisions you and I make every day are of such infinite importance. The smallest good act today is the capture of a strategic point from which a few months later you may be able to go on to victory you never dreamed of. An apparently trivial indulgence in lust or anger today is actually the loss of that ridge or railway line or bridgehead from which the enemy may launch an attack otherwise impossible. We are further helped to understand the significance of our choices by two other men. Whitney M. Young Jr., who said this: the truth is, there is nothing noble in being superior to somebody else. The only real nobility is being superior to your former self. And Henry David Thoreau said this: I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of a man to elevate his life by conscious behavior. To summarize all these quotes, we are told, we are advised to commit ourselves to continuous personal improvement. And by definition, if you do not change, you cannot improve. Undoubtedly, not all changes progress, but all progress does require change. Mr. Hunter again reminds us, if we do not believe that people can change, we have no business trying to further develop our leadership skills, because this will require us to change. If you have no confidence in change, don't even waste your time on yourself. How we change is a well-studied process. But one author in particular, Alan Wheelis, he wrote How People Change more than 30 years ago, conceived the following premise in his book. Mr. Wheelis believes human change generally flows through 4 stages: suffering, insight, will, and finally, the change itself. When reflecting on my own life, ladies, I found these stages to be right on target. I'd like to take a few minutes and examine the stages with you. Let's look at the first stage, suffering. It's certainly familiar to all of us. Somewhere along the course of our lives, we've all had experiences that were painful. Our encounters with suffering and friction and pain or discomfort of some sort usually is necessary to get us to move out of our comfort zone. Whether it is desired or not, or whether it is easy or not, suffering is a powerful, powerful motivator for change. A vast majority of us need some friction to push us out of the monotonous inertia of our lives and into change. Mr. Hunter offers us some examples of frictions applicable to leadership. They might be a boss who demands leadership skills improvement from you. You may have relational problems that create friction. You might have a family problem that creates friction. Perhaps your health is not as good as you'd like it to be, and that creates some stress and friction or pain and causes you to act and do things differently so you can get well again. Maybe receiving a 360-degree feedback evaluation from your subordinates that indicates problems will push you in a direction of changing positively. Maybe you've been divorced or separated from someone you loved for painful reasons. Those are just a few things that you can think about. You, I'm sure, have others in your own life that you can reflect on. The second stage that is referred to is the stage of insight. Insight includes examining one's behavior and relational habits and the effects on relationships in our lives. Insight includes concluding personally or getting intellectual agreement of a team that change is possible, provided that you or your team truly is prepared to change and grow. It includes understanding that change is difficult with full commitment and cooperation. Insight includes understanding the great freedom that we have to ponder our conditions, to explore the alternatives, and to actually make the choice to change. Mr. Hunter emphasizes that insight must include hope. Hope that comes from understanding and believing that change really can and really does occur regularly in the real world. Think about it. Alcoholics do get sober, don't they? People with disabilities do become better and improve. Criminals do sometimes become solid citizens. And prejudiced individuals can learn to accept others more readily. Clearly, not all change ends poorly. The third stage of change is the exertion of our will. Will can be defined succinctly as this. This is the formula for will. Will equals your intention plus your actions. Mr. Hunter has already told us head knowledge without your application is useless. He adds this point. It's of no value to learn what is right and then not do what is right. What is needed for change is an absolute commitment. You have to have an absolute commitment to change. This commitment should include the readiness to change and the willingness to make the efforts necessary to align intention with concrete actions. It should also include the determination to behave differently over and over and over again until new habits emerge. Now this brings us to the final stage of change. That was illuminated by Wheelis and has been affirmed by Mr. Hunter. That is the act of change itself. It's self-evident to me that when behaviors are practiced consistently over time, real and lasting change occurs. This practice is not without starts and stops, moves forward, backsliding, doing more, and doing less. I remind you of a point made during part one of my presentation. That is, we live today in a world driven to obtain instant gratification. Because we want it all now, we become more easily discouraged by having to wait for change, even when we know the result could be better or even best in the situation. The fact is, long-lasting change comes incrementally, and this is true for both good and bad habits. To say it like the famous coach John Wooden said it, when you improve a little each day, eventually big things occur. Don't look for the big, quick improvement. Seek the small improvement one day at a time. That's the only way it happens, and when it happens, it lasts. In many cases, it is possible after 6 months to begin extinguishing old character habits and to bring a new and hopefully more positive response to the point of being the default response. Again, it takes about 6 months. On the other hand, some of us may struggle with certain serious habits for many years. And in cases like these, the sufficiency of support and the encouragement necessary are essential to ultimate success. In my opinion, an observant servant leader will notice this need and will find ample ways to love his colleague forward. He or she will determine ways to encourage self-esteem in the person struggling with change. I remind you, human beings are a bundle of habits, both good and bad. Habits can be changed, and they can be changed for the better. But an immense effort and a strong commitment is required to complete the race. We can choose to be different than we are today, and it's never too late to learn and mature. With that said, I want to turn now, with Hunter's help, and share a very effective process that can help you in your efforts to change. Daniel Goleman, a Harvard professor and a best-selling author, has written a few books about what he calls emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a broad term encompassing interpersonal skills, motivation, social skills, empathy, and self-awareness. Goleman has said, there is an old-fashioned word for the body of skills that emotional intelligence represents. The word is character. A major premise in Goleman's work is that one does not learn emotional intelligence, leadership skill, or character the way one learns a technical or analytical skill, like mathematics or physics or car mechanics or how to set up an Excel spreadsheet. Simply put, leadership is not something you grasp in your head. Mere understanding of the principles of servant leadership are not enough. Leadership skills are developed by combining knowledge with necessary actions to become very proficient at them. In order to be successful, individuals and organizations must regard leadership as a skill needing to be learned and developed and continually improved over time. As important a point, emotional intelligence is not fixed, and it can be developed throughout your entire life. It's also known as maturing. The challenge of such development is that it takes great effort to break old habits and to replace them with a new one. And quoting Goleman again, it's important to emphasize that building one's emotional intelligence will not happen without sincere desire and a concerted effort. But it can be done. It is accomplishable. In his books, James Hunter has provided us with a path and a process for developing our servant leadership. He has chosen these 3 parts of the process and refers to them as the 3 F's. The 3 F's are foundation, feedback, and friction. Foundation, feedback, and friction. Mr. Hunter enlightens us with the idea that whenever human beings enter a new team environment, regardless of their specific role on the team, they generally have 2 basic questions when they get there. Question 1 is, how am I supposed to behave? Question 2, what's going to happen if I don't behave the way they want me to? Leaders have to answer these questions, and they have to do it quickly and thoroughly. As a leader, you have to have crucial responsibility for articulating and communicating the vision of the team. Hunter stresses this important point. It must be made clear to aspiring leaders that effective leadership and continuous improvement are required behavior if one is going to assume the privilege and the awesome responsibility of being the leader in the first place. Those in leadership need effective training in the principles of servant leadership to provide them with a solid working knowledge of what good leadership looks like and where they are headed as leaders themselves. I ask you to consider this pair of presentations that I'm giving you on leadership as my attempt to begin laying a foundation for your own and for TLC's team leadership development. Following the initial training, it becomes vitally important that we identify personally and as a team any gaps between our set standards and the current performance. In other words, we're going to look for feedback. Our deviations must be clearly understood in order to redirect ourselves to the right path to servant leadership. Fortunately for us, Mr. Hunter and his colleagues have created an assessment tool called a Leadership Skills Inventory. The tool may be used in the context of evaluating team members, or it can serve as your own self-assessment. And that will helpfully lead you to improve on your own leadership skills. When it's applied in the team context, it is conducted anonymously on a 360-degree basis to establish a baseline for the team and each team member, then completes a self-assessment for comparison to the team. It's recommended that it be repeated in 6 months to monitor changes. I'm not going to elaborate any more on the details now, but I would encourage that we conduct this assessment when we have completed laying the foundation, whether it be here in TLC or it be anywhere else in your life that you're participating as a leader. So, as I've already said, creating appropriate friction is also crucial to change. No pain, no gain. In order to create healthy tension and thereby achieve constructive change, it's important we understand and are convinced that any top leadership is fully committed to the process of change and expects to see continuous improvement in the form of your personal growth and behavior. To monitor and measure change, Hunter recommends that each team member set quarterly 2 SMART goals. SMART is the acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time limited. So he suggests that each of you individually set 2 goals for yourself. Those goals might include things like developing patience and humility, giving respect to each other, showing appropriate appreciation for each other, developing active listening skills, learning confrontation skills, or similar character development skills. As a rule, leaders usually are not struggling with the technical side of leadership. Instead, more often they are finding themselves weak on the relational side. With this fact in mind, my effort preparing this presentation was done with the intention of enlightening you about the behaviors and the poor habits that have become obstacles to your being more effective leaders. I also hope to assist you in not only eliminating the poor habits, but replacing them with healthy ones. When we conclude today, I hope that we will all be motivated to take personal and collective responsibility to change and grow. When this commitment occurs, we will definitely make rapid progress toward being servant leaders. In the world's most powerful leadership principle, How to Become a Servant, Mr. Hunter summarizes these ideas in this way. He says, "What I find is that many of the people who struggle as leaders have never received the proper education on what good leadership looks like. I usually find that they have not received the necessary feedback to help them keep their balance over time. And I practically never find struggling leaders who have received adequate friction or are held accountable for their change and their growth. If you truly are committed to continuous improvement and to becoming an effective leader, I am convinced that each of the 3 steps described must be employed in order to ensure true and lasting behavior change. You do not need a formalized process, although having one is helpful. Nor do you need to hire outside consultants to assist you. However, you must be sure that you have foundation, feedback, and friction." So before concluding, I want to take a little bit of time and relate some additional remarks that are concerned with motivation, deeper human needs, creating meaning and purpose, honoring people, demanding excellence, and building community. These are contributing elements to building servant leadership and a healthy organization. Mr. Hunter tells us we cannot begin to talk about motivation until we understand that true motivation is about lighting a fire within people. True motivation is influencing and inspiring people to action and getting their internal generator running. Motivation is people moved to action because they want to act, not because you want them to act. They want to give their best and their all for the team. Always remember, we cannot change anyone. The best we can do is influence the future choices. Motivators for doing so include these things. You recognize others. You praise and appreciate them. You provide opportunity for their personal growth. You support their personal growth along the way. You challenge them with new undertakings and meaningful work. And you strive to provide them job satisfaction. If one increases any one of the motivators, one will stimulate people to give more. Think about it for a moment among yourselves right now. Just think about a time when something was given to you that is representative of one of these motivators I just described. Just think about it in your head for a minute and think about the outcome that occurred. The most successful organizations know and work diligently to meet deeper needs that we all share. Some of these deeper needs include the following: a need for great leadership, a need for meaning and purpose in our life, a need to be appreciated, recognized, and respected, a need to be part of something excellent or special, a need to be part of a caring community. It's no mistake that leadership is first on the list of these deeper human needs, ladies. Its position there reminds us that excellent leadership is essential to meeting human needs and to operating a successful organization. Owners and top leaders are thereby obligated to hire and develop effective servant leaders. And in particular, their placement of effective servant leaders as frontline supervisors is the most powerful way to ensure positive employee relations. The reality for the people on the front lines is their direct supervisor. If they got a lousy boss, they've got a lousy job. Remember, we have to live with that reality 50% of our day. And also remember, 2/3 of employees do not quit the company, they quit their boss. Mr. Hunter reminds us, human beings have a deep yearning for meaning and purpose in life and will give back to organizations that assist them in meeting those needs. Paraphrasing Mr. Hunter, I would add that we want to believe that what we are doing is important, that it serves a purpose, that it adds value to the world around us. It is important to know that our company stands for something important and is principled in its behavior. Many of us crave the extraordinary, something that brings out the best in us. We yearn for ways to align our personal value with our company's values. Indeed, we even hunger for a way to live out our lives in a meaningful and a fulfilling way. An organization's leaders are a bit like missionaries, reminding people about what the organization stands for, what it values, what it's trying to accomplish, and who's being served. They, like missionaries, remind others about the rules of the house and what conduct and behaviors the team is committed to live by. They are the ones to remind people about what is special about them and what is special about the work they are doing. If meaning and purpose are not obviously evident in what we do as a company, we must find the meaning and the purpose. Even if that meaning and purpose is simply to be meeting a societal need and doing that better than everyone else. In Built to Last, Jim Collins and Jerry Perez say this about the truly great companies. Yes, those great companies seek profit, but they are equally guided by a core ideology. Their core ideology is to have values and a sense of purpose that goes beyond just making money. Always remember, we must honor each other. We can do so by giving sincere and specific praise when it's earned, recognizing achievements, and by rewarding excellence. We honor others when we show sincere interest in them as people, and not just for what they do or contribute to the organization. Honor is given when excellence is insisted upon in everything that is done. Honor presents itself when we help others to build character and be the best that they can be. Commonly, we want to know that our leaders are glad that we are with them. We should expect the leaders to model common courtesies to us, like saying please or thank you. Or, I'm sorry, I was really wrong in that situation. Can you forgive me for being harsh? Or, what do you think? What's your idea about this matter? Our leaders should be the first to speak when they encounter someone and to find something positive and encouraging to say. Our leaders should develop the skill of asking open-ended questions and then actively listening for the response to the question. And based on my personal experience, ladies, these techniques do not fail. They are absolutely successful. Most of us want to be part of something special, as I said. We desire to be a part of an organization that we can be proud of, in which the standards for admission are high, where the daily expectations of our performance are high, and where people feel good when they go home at the end of the day, because they know they have worked hard for a good purpose. Keeping a high standard of excellence builds healthy pride and confidence among a team's membership. As people begin accomplishing goals and achieving results, the confidence level rises, and they begin to set even larger goals for themselves and for the organization. Typically, excellence becomes contagious, and it contributes to the organization's advancement to become the best in its field. I sincerely say, without any hesitation, TLC Nursing Associates demonstrates this behavior and this mindset very consistently. Ponder for a moment when you have experienced being part of a truly excellent team. Think about that. When have you been part of a truly excellent team? Hopefully you can say right now. Think about the sense of pride and the sense of accomplishment and the confidence that you had being part of this process and part of that success. Think about how motivating it is to go the extra mile for the team. Mr. Hunter tells us this: excellence becomes its own motivation, and it does ignite fire within. I guess to me it's a no-brainer that an organization's leaders must remain committed to the pursuit of excellence. Because when they are committed to excellence, they infect other people to rise to levels that those other people never dreamed they were even capable of. And one day, the team will look around and it's going to exclaim, how in the world did all this happen? How did we get where we are? This is amazing. So the last but by no means least of the contributing elements of building servant leadership is building a community. Hunter again informs us this way. He says building community is going about the business of creating a healthy environment in which people can live and work free of unnecessary barriers and distractions. It is a struggle to create a place where committed yet diverse people can find common ground to work together toward goals identified as being for the common good. Great organizations work to reduce or eliminate unnecessary barriers like office politics, positional power struggles, head games, secret agendas that suck the positive energy right out of the people and out of the organization as it's all taking place. Community is not a place free from conflict. In a healthy community, there should be some conflict. Community is a place of conflict resolution, not conflict avoidance. In such a community, members have learned to accept differences and to deal directly with conflict in respectful ways. In this community, members have learned to behave with respect. They've learned to listen. They've learned to be assertive with one another. They've learned to be open and receptive to new challenges and new ideas. And they've learned to value the diversity that is present in the healthy team. Building community equates to building an environment where we feel capital S, capital A, capital F, capital E, where we feel safe. Safe to be ourselves, safe and free to put our energy and our resources into the things that will make us and our community great. Community is rarely built by accident, ladies, although we at times see glimpses of it during crisis. Unfortunately, with the crisis, as it passes, people usually go back to their old and familiar methods of managing their life. In order to be genuine, a community must be developed by practicing the proper principles that ensure healthy relationships. Principles such as the Golden Rule that I referred to earlier, using assertive communication always, building trust, acting in forgiving ways, putting out praise, pouring it out, I should say, rather than putting it out, pouring it out. And finally, upholding excellence. Always, always upholding excellence. Ultimately, when groups learn to set aside the barriers that get in the way of healthy relationships and team viability, it is clearly astounding how these groups grow and become effective teams who are able to achieve real results in the real world. So in closing, I want to recap some of the most important features and suggestions that I presented today, and hope to encourage and facilitate your development as successful servant leaders who can work in a successful organization. Here they are. Never forget to lead is to serve. Be picky about who you hire and or permit entrance into your organization. Celebrate when a new hire or a new member is accepted to your team. Make sure you orient him or her properly, and never underestimate the power of the first impression. Define the purpose and the meaning of the work that's to be done. Be passionate about preaching it over and over and over again. Find ways to make people's work challenging and interesting and rewarding. Make sure you compensate fairly. Give honor to all people, not just to the select few. Identify, develop, and invest heavily in your leadership. Demand excellence and accountability, especially among the leadership. Insist upon personal continuous improvement of everyone, regardless of their job responsibilities. Recognize and reward achievements spontaneously. Don't set 6 months from now as a date when you're going to reward everybody. If somebody does something today and it's relevant and it's successful and it's important and it's meaningful to the company, then the company should be addressing that with a quick response of praise and reward. Always, always work to build the community's strength and to enlarge the community numerically. Seek out best practices and implement them. Push decision-making to the lowest level possible. PCAs offer wonderful advice to nurses. And they make a lot of decisions every day when they're in the home taking care of a client. We trust their decision-making as long as we know that they're adequately trained. And that's part of the leadership's responsibility, to train people well and to help them develop these new skills that are necessary. We trust people to do the right thing. We're honest and demand honesty, even brutal honesty. And that needs to be in the case of good news and bad news. We respect the important balance between work and home life. Like I said earlier, most of us spend 50% of our day in work, among colleagues, not with our families. So we do have to try to find balance. And in many cases, I know in my own, sometimes I'm out of balance. I'm 70% at work and 30% at home. And that may be true for some of you as well. So please consider that. 50-50 would be a great balance to achieve on a regular basis. Not always achievable. The last thing is do the little things that make our house a home. If we got to spend 50% of our life at work, we want the work environment to be as comfortable as our own home. That means picking it up, making sure it's not filthy and dirty. That means tidying up yourself, coming in appearing clean and well kept, and so on. So leaving you now, I'm going to offer 2 final points to take away with you. I'd like you to ponder the words of James Hunter, with which I fully agree. Mr. Hunter says, when people begin practicing the behaviors of love, extending themselves for others, they change. And they often change in ways beyond what they expected or even thought were possible. Simply put, love changes people. And then take note that I hope the time taken to learn these principles of being a servant leader may have awakened some of you to action. If you do feel a stirring within yourself, please do not wait another day before taking the first steps of this rewarding, exciting, but difficult journey towards servant leadership. I firmly believe you will never regret starting the journey, and I assume you will never finish the journey until the day you leave this planet and go on to the next experience of our lives. So I conclude today by sincerely thanking you for your attention throughout this presentation, and remain available to anyone who wishes to have more dialogue about it, and also to remind you again that this will be posted on our website for those that you may encounter in your life, whether they work for TLC or not, who might be interested in learning more about being a leader. They're welcome to go and utilize the information and see what's there. So thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Very good.
Compliment. Is there an off button on that side?
Stop right here.
Hey, am I on it?
Nope, down. Yep, right there.
Did it stop? Yep. Well, I think it did. Let's see.
In case it didn't. Good idea.
Oh, I thank you.